In order to get the budget back on track, the uber wealthy are being taxed on their superannuation kitty. Let's bring in Treasurer Jim Chalmers. Treasurer, good morning to you.
Good morning, Karl.
Before the last election, you vowed to bring integrity back to politics. How much integrity is there in a broken election promise?
Well, one of the reasons, Karl, that we made this change come into effect after the next election is because we wanted to take it to the people, and that's what we're doing. We said before the election we wouldn't make major changes to superannuation. This is a modest change. It leaves all the fundamentals of superannuation in place, but it makes the superannuation tax concessions a bit more sustainable. It makes the budget a bit more responsible. And that's our responsibility to the Australian people. We inherited $1 trillion of debt and deficits as far as the eye can see, and some of the pressures on the budget are intensifying rather than easing. And so this is about responsible economic management. It's about making a modest but meaningful change to super, where 99.5% of people are unaffected. And even for the 0.5% of people with millions of dollars in their superannuation account, they can still access tax concessions. They're just a little bit less generous.
My point is, you said it wasn't going to happen, and now you're saying it is going to happen. That's a broken promise.
Well, I said there wouldn't be major changes to superannuation, and this isn't a major change. It's a modest change.
The PM said there wasn't going to be changes?
Well, it wasn't something that we were contemplating before the election. In fact, it wasn't something we were contemplating for the October budget either. But some of the pressures on the budget, including the borrowing costs on that $1 trillion of debt because interest rates are rising, some of those pressures are intensifying. And our responsibility to people is to try and make the right decisions for the right reasons. Sometimes taking the right path is not the path of least resistance. And we take our responsibilities seriously enough that we understand that when you make an announcement like we did yesterday, sometimes it does come with a political cost, but our overwhelming responsibility to the Australian people is to try and do the right thing. This is the right thing for superannuation and for the budget.
The political cost is now the trust issue that you're alluding to. Are you going to apologise to the Australian people for breaking an election promise?
I genuinely don't think that's necessary, Karl. I think the Australian people expect me as Treasurer and the government more broadly to try and make these difficult decisions and try and get them right. And on the merits of the decision, I don't think any objective observer could say that this wasn't the right policy outcome. It does make superannuation a bit more affordable and the budget a bit more responsible, and we need to do that because we've got all this debt in the system that every Australian pays the interest on, and we want to try and get on top of things. And part of getting on top of things is recognising we can continue to give these tax concessions, but we can make them a little bit less generous for people who might have tens of millions of dollars in their super accounts.
With respect, you knew the debt levels. If it was such a good idea, if, as you said, there would be no major changes, why didn't you have the courage to take it to the last election?
Because we weren't considering it then, Karl.
But why not?
It wasn't on the agenda then, and it wasn't on the agenda even into last year. In the October budget that I handed down. But as I keep saying, some of these pressures on the budget are getting harder rather than easier. The budget's getting a little bit better in the near term because we're getting good prices for our commodities and unemployment's got a 3 in front of it, and we're getting the beginnings of wages growth. All of that's good for the budget this year and next year. But after that, whether it's healthcare or aged care or disabilities or defence spending, but especially the interest costs on that $1 trillion of debt that we inherited from our predecessors, all of these pressures are intensifying on the budget, and we can't ignore them. No responsible government can ignore those pressures. That's why the decision that we took and announced yesterday is all about responsible economic management.
So if you're quite willing to break an election promise if something's not on the agenda, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying we always got to try and take the right decision for the right reasons, even when it's difficult.
OK, so no one feels sorry for the super rich, I get that. But is the real issue, it won't generate the revenue you hope, and in the meantime, you put the fear of God into everyone with a super account?
Well, I don't think that should be the reaction. 99.5% of people are unaffected. And some people want to argue that the $2 billion a year that we'll raise from this roughly when it's up and running properly is too much, and some people will want to say that it's too little. It is a modest change, but it's a meaningful change. And that couple of $1 billion a year matters at a time when we're trying to get on top of some of these budget pressures.
OK, what is next then? Because I don't think you're going to stop here. trust accounts, capital gains, negative gearing?
Well, we put out yesterday an assessment from the Treasury of the cost of all of the various tax breaks, but I think we demonstrated in the announcement that we made immediately after all of those numbers were released that our priority and our focus and our intention is in the superannuation system. We believe in super. We created the thing. It's world class, but it's imperfect. And one of its imperfections is that we can't afford to give incredibly generous tax breaks to people who might have $100 million in super. And so we've made this tweak to the system so that we can make it a little bit more affordable, a bit more responsible. That's our priority when it comes to tax.
It's not a broken election promise, it's a tweak. Any more tweaks coming to trust accounts, capital gains or negative gearing?
We haven't been working up any options on that.
But it could be part of the agenda?
Well, it's not something we've been considering.
But see, here's the problem. You said that before about super, and now you're saying that about that, and therefore it erodes your credibility in the electorate.
Yeah, but I'm being upfront with your viewers, Karl, and saying that...
It's not on the agenda yet, like superannuation.
When we look right across the tax concessions in the budget, we think the most important place to act is superannuation. We will always try and take the right decision on behalf of your viewers, Karl, in the economy. None of these decisions are easy. We shouldn't pretend otherwise. But what we announced yesterday, I think, demonstrates, first of all, by putting it on the other side of the election, but also making sure that it's a modest change, even though it's meaningful. All of these reasons, I think, demonstrate our priorities when it comes to tax reform.
So just to clarify, just before we go and let you do another 100 interviews, you're not going to touch trust accounts, capital gains or negative gearing?
It's not something we've been considering.
Yet?
Well, it's not something we've been considering. I mean, I think by announcing what we will do, I think that gives people the best understanding of where our priority is. Our priority is this modest but meaningful change in super.
Retirement savings, they're going to be a little bit mad with the Treasurer today. He's doubling tax rates. A fair few of those uber wealthy would have to be Teal voters, right?
And our correspondent Lara Vella is deep in Teal territory. She has bravely ventured onto the wrong side of the tracks.
She has.
Yep, into one of the richest suburbs in the country, Double Bay. Lara, are you okay?
Oh, look, it's tough out here on the streets of Double Bay this morning, Karl and Sarah. You know, the community, they are counting their pennies, they are counting the stacks of $100 bills that they have strategically placed throughout their penthouses and mansions in case of a rainy day. Because this is basically a class warfare, and let's face it, no one likes it when the rich are the targets, do they? So the poor people of Double Bay, or really I should say the mega wealthy of Double Bay, are rallying together this morning. So we took to the beautifully manicured streets of Double Bay to see how everybody's feeling.
People are very despondent. They're going to be ordering less coffee now, and they're not sure how they're going to get through their day.
How are they going to pay for those almond lattes?
They're going to have to sell some of their properties.
Are you a middle-income owner?
At the moment, yeah.
Oh, no. Go.
Sorry.
Let me talk to you. No. What are you going to do? You're going to have to sell the second Mercedes?
No, not the Mercedes. It's my third boat. My daughter's favourite. It's grim, but we'll have to consider it.
There's going to be so many tough conversations had around solid marble dining room tables this morning, aren't there? I mean, are they going to have to sell the second or third Mercedes, maybe even downgrade to an Audi or a VW? I mean, Winters and Whistler, they're not going to pay for themselves. It's tough.
It's not easy.
On the streets of Double Bay.
It's not easy,
Look,
Lara.
she's going to yoga.
Yeah, no, it's not easy. I get it. All right, to break all this down for those people and the rest of the country, John Keir, he has a way of cutting through, economics editor at the AFR. Johnny, good morning to you.
Morning, guys.
This stinks of a broken promise, doesn't it, Johnny?
Yeah, I mean, it is, absolutely. But I guess the question on the government's mind, are too many people going to care? It's only going to hit about 80,000 people, raise about $2 billion for the budget, and won't be coming in until July 2025 after the next election. So I think the government's calculated here they can get away with this and do it, and it won't cost them many votes.
But it's an issue of trust, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's a slight slippery slope if you think about it, because maybe in the back of some people's minds are, well, what's next? Are they going to tighten the screws somewhere else, elsewhere in superannuation, maybe trusts or capital gains tax discounts? Now, the Treasurer and the Prime Minister yesterday said they weren't, but they didn't actually completely rule it out either. So, I mean, that will be in the back of some people's minds.
Even people who fall into this category, the argument is that they've paid top-tier tax for most of their life. They've done whatever they can do for the country. And obviously, as Sarah points out, aren't many people going to be feeling sorry for them, but it does change the way that super is designed for, right? And it does bring about, I guess, a certain trepidation in that as a sure investment in the future. Does it change it?
Yeah, I think they've done it enough where the concessions still remain generous enough that most people will keep their money in superannuation. Now, for example, the headline rate on these earnings over $3 million is 30%, but often people don't actually pay that because once you build in franking credits, capital gains tax discounts, it can be lower than that. So I still think superannuation for the vast majority of people is going to be a pretty tax-effective vehicle to keep their money in.
What are you looking at closely from here on?
Well, I think the one to keep an eye on probably is trusts and capital gains tax discounts. They went to the 2019 election saying they wanted to change those. Then they ruled those out. Depends how much they want to bite off and chew, I think, before the next election or take something to the next election. They'll probably be a bit more cautious from anything from here because you can only build in so many broken promises before people don't take you seriously. So maybe it's something they look to take to the next election to raise a bit of revenue.
Hey there, Today fans. Sarah and...
What's my name again?
Oh my goodness, Karl.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel, though. Subscribe now for more news, special reports and amazing Aussie stories.
And Karl misbehaving,
Whoa,
of course.
that never happens.
Always happens.
What's she talking about?